Welcome to Sports Management Podcast, where you will hear interesting sports management professionals share their stories, experiences, and passion for the sports management industry. I am your host, Marcus Philipson. Today's guest is Michelle Carney. She is the CEO of Special Olympics UK, a role she has held since 2018. Michelle explains why she has the best job in sports, the importance of inclusivity in sports, and she also reveals Britain's best kept secret. Michelle Carney, welcome to the Sports Management Podcast.
Thanks very much, Marcus. Delighted to be here.
You are the CEO of Special Olympics Great Britain. Can you tell us a little bit what this role includes?
Oh, it includes anything and everything. So Special Olympics is part of a global movement. So it was set up in the US in 1968 by Eunice Kennedy Shriver, the sister of John F. Kennedy. They had a sister, Eunice, who had an intellectual disability, and their father thought that money could fix her. So sent her for a lobotomy, and that didn't work. She was never seen in public again. So Eunice decided to set up Special Olympics with the view that anybody with an intellectual disability, intellectual learning disability, should be able to access sport and play a full part of life. We were then set up in Great Britain 10 years later in 1978. So we've been here 42 years now, but we still remain Britain's best kept secret because I started out in disability sport. This is my area of interest, worked in a lot of different areas of sport, community sport, grassroots, worked with governments, international sport, professional sport, all of that. And I didn't know we existed in Great Britain. So I joined a couple of years ago as chief executive. And because we've got such a small team, I wear a number of hats. So not just the strategic development stuff, but actually really engrossed in the operational and have had to lead a whole transformation of the whole organisation internally and externally. And that's been quite a substantial piece of work and continues.
I understand. So much to talk about. And I think just to make clear for some people that they might not know, if we explain the differences between the Olympics, the Paralympics and the Special Olympics.
Yeah, so Special Olympics is part of the Olympic family. So Olympics, Paralympics and Special Olympics. And we often get confused with the Paralympics. Olympics and Paralympics are about elite sport and one big event every 4 years. So elite, the best of the best, and one big event. Special Olympics is about sport for all abilities, and we have those big events every 4 years, but we also, outside COVID, have competition and activity happening every day of the week, every week of the year. So in Paralympics, you are divisioned on your disability, so you compete with people with the same disability. Special Olympics, we division on your ability. So if you can run 100 meters in 20 seconds, you will be running alongside people who can run at a similar speed. So that's how we division on ability rather than disability. And for world events and national games, we don't just select those elite performers, the best of the best. It's an opportunity for everybody in different categories to participate and represent their country, their region, their club. So, and actually what we're about is we use sport as a tool to transform lives, and we do that in the most joyous and fun environment. So if you come along to our competitions, they are hugely competitive, but once across the line, everybody's hugging, and it's really about fun and friendship and having a great time. It's a really family.
Yeah, so for the athletes that have an intellectual disability, how important is sports for them in their lives?
I talked to our athletes about what life was like before Special Olympics, and they all tell a similar story. They were bullied, they were excluded, they didn't have friends. Some had bottles thrown at them, some didn't want to live. They were socially isolated and excluded. And then I say, what does Special Olympics bring? I have friends, I have fun, I learn new things, I get, I've developed my confidence, and I get a chance to travel, and I feel part of a big family. So it's really important. So it's not just about sport on the field or the court or the track. This is about a whole life, and it's for our athletes and their families, because we transform lives for their families as well, and all the thousands of volunteers that we have up and down Great Britain.
Yeah, I read that you have 10,000 athletes approximately.
Yeah.
And that is in Great Britain, 10,000.
Yeah, so globally there are, because we're in nearly 200 countries and nations, 6.5 million registered athletes and unified partners. We're only scratching the surface here in Great Britain. We have 11,000 athletes that we work with. We need to do more. We're not reaching 99.6% of our population here, but we've not had the resource or the infrastructure to do it. And that's what we're working at the moment, because we need to ensure that we have high quality clubs that are safe, that have the right operation standards in place. We need to have a high level of competitive opportunity, and all of that needs resource. So that's what we're working at. So we have the ability to do a lot more. We need to do a lot more, and that's what we're working hard to do.
So why do you think that you are Britain's best kept secret?
Yeah, it's interesting, because there's a number of reasons for that. And ultimately, we haven't been around the right tables. And we've just continued to do our thing in the right way. And that's worked for many, many years. But in order to get great traction and brand awareness, we need to be able to tell our story, which is a phenomenal story, in the right way and on the right platforms. We hadn't quite figured out how to do that, and that's playing a huge part in our development. So now we are around the right tables, and I'm speaking regularly with Downing Street and just trying to galvanise central government support. We're around the table with the major national governing bodies of sport and the national governing agencies. We're linking in, learning the lessons from the US, where Special Olympics is massive. You sit in a taxi in America, who do you work for? I work for Special Olympics. Oh my God, it's so great, it's great. If you sit in a taxi here and, what do you do? I work for Special Olympics. Oh yeah, I've seen them running down a track with one leg. No, that's the Paralympics. This is the Special Olympics. But when we say, once you're in, you're in. So once you know about us, then you want to know more about us. So that's part and parcel of my job, and my team's job is to continue to push that message out. First and foremost, as a charity, we need funding to do that, but we also need brand presence to do that. And so there's a lot of things that we juggle, because if we went out with a campaign tomorrow to say, yeah, join Special Olympics, we don't have the club infrastructure at the moment to cope with an influx of another 100,000 people coming through. So we need to get that right as well. So my job is, I suppose I'm a little bit of a hustler, and I kind of say, why not? Why are we not talking about athletes with an intellectual disability, Yeah. And our time is now. So we're into this time of inclusion and diversity. This is the last big conversation. And, a lot of people think, oh, yeah, we're being, inclusive of disabled people. But when they're saying that, they think that disability inclusion means physical accessibility. So I'm going to put a ramp in, and I'm going to, adapt my workplace for people in wheelchairs. Well, that's great, but that's not inclusive of a person with an intellectual or a learning disability. So I'm really, and my team are about just really talking about learning disability, intellectual disability, and, giving our athletes a voice.
Yeah. You mentioned the marketing strategy and the obstacles surrounding that. Have you found it difficult to get funds and sponsor for the Special Olympics?
Yeah, it's really tough, and especially tough with COVID, and we've lost a considerable amount of opportunity to fundraise. 60% of our funding comes from corporate partners, and obviously we need that to increase, and we're working with the government to try and unlock some resource. So it's very time intensive to fundraise, and when you don't have a lot of money to invest in people to fundraise, we have this kind of catch-22. So where you started in terms of what's my job, I'm a fundraiser. I'm trying to inform policy. I'm working on operations. I'm trying to get the message out. I'm the brand communicator, the voice, supporting our athletes to have their voice. So it's really, really tough. But when we do get in front of people and have conversations, people say, how can we help? Because they have to. The 94% of people with an intellectual disability in the UK are unemployed, and that's not okay. That's not acceptable. So we have a role to play in positioning the role that we can support our corporate partners with, and people who need to increase levels of employability. We have a role to play where we can support with that. So there's lots of really positive things that are starting to happen. So if anybody out there's got a spare £1,000,000 who just wants to invest, and the other thing that we're looking at, and I'm really pushing it, is to develop our own social enterprise and look at different ways of employing and our athletes. And so it would be run by athletes, by paid athletes, because we have a duty to show the world what's possible, but also used as an investment tool. All the profits get reinvested back in to develop more opportunities. So that's something that we're looking at, about that, diversifying our thought process about where income can come from.
Yeah.
So yeah, but if anybody wants to invest, seed fund, don't mind. We'll take it all.
Of course.
It'll make a difference, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm just thinking, if you talk about the British Olympics, there are some major sponsors from that end. Are those companies usually not interested, or they don't feel the return on investment is worth it, or what's usually the reason for why not?
That's a great question. So, yeah, I would ask them why not. So, those are huge, big commercial deals tied up in that return on investment and a global audience and viewing figures. And our proposition, our offer is different. Our offer is about, societal change and making real transformative change. So if you're buying into us for that brand profile at major events, you'll get that around a national games or a world games. You're not going to get that necessarily through national program specific support. But what you do get, in my mind, is more than that. You get the opportunity to shift perceptions and make transformative change, which will fundamentally change the landscape for those who live with an intellectual disability in Great Britain, of which there are 1.5 million people. That's a figure set to rise by the end of next year. 200 babies are born every week in Great Britain with an intellectual disability, and we will all know somebody who has a member of their family with an intellectual disability. Yeah. It's kind of in a lot of cases it's hidden, and we have a role to play. Actually, let's celebrate, because our athletes are genuinely awesome. They are my greatest joy, and I think everybody should experience what I experience.
Yeah. Speaking of the athletes, what sports are offered in the Special Olympics?
Yeah, so on a program basis, we offer 28 different sports, and that varies depending on where you are across Great Britain. So we cover England, Wales and Scotland. At national and world games, we will look at, we make decisions on those 4-year cycles based on the numbers and, how viable is a particular sport as a competition, and linking into what level of support from a governing body is there, and in terms of, are there enough officials and stuff so we have 28 different sports at the moment that we run. We need to look at that to go, should we do more, should we do less, and what are the opportunities? We're mapping the whole of Great Britain to go, actually, what can you do where? And I have a team working on that at the moment. But then when you go to a national or an international World Games, there were 17 different sports at Abu Dhabi World Games in 2019.
Okay.
So there's a large offering for all abilities.
Is it both individual sports and team sports, or it's more individual sports?
So we do winter and summer sports. So we do alpine skiing and figure skating. And then from a summer sports, we have, athletics, basketball. Great Britain men are gold medalists at the World Games, and we beat the United States in the final, which was great because I was supposed to meet our global ambassador, Nicole Scherzinger, for lunch. And I was running late because I wouldn't leave the basketball game until I knew the result. So bless her, she was patient with me, but I was half an hour late because I needed to see us win the gold medal. Football, we are gold medalists. We won the gold medal at the World Games in football. We beat Australia 3-1. We were down 1-0 to start with and won, and that was just an incredible atmosphere. We do golf, we do artistic gymnastics, rhythmic gymnastics, equestrian, bocce, bowls, bocce. Yeah, so an element of lots of different opportunities, and we do sailing, open water swimming loads.
Yeah, that sounds really amazing.
Yeah, it's really good.
So this year, unfortunately, there are no games due to COVID-19. And you mentioned it before when we talked about the funding, that it's more difficult now during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So how has the pandemic affected the Special Olympics and your job?
Yeah, it's had a massive impact on our athletes and our global movement, actually. So we sit with the global team every 2 weeks and look at where we are. And it's really difficult, and it's different actually in different countries and in different continents. We're all at different positions, but we're all joined together in the fact that our athletes have been disproportionately affected by this pandemic. So, away from the financial element, which has been, we've been ravaged by that. We made a decision to postpone the 21 games, our national games that were supposed to be held in Liverpool. We made a decision alongside our athletes to postpone that to 22. And then sadly, Liverpool made a heartbreaking decision that they couldn't host it for a number of reasons in 22. So we have to have some form of event because we've got the World Games, the next World Summer Games are in Berlin in 2023, and we have to have some kind of qualification for that. So I am having, when Liverpool gave us that news, I started a lot of conversations with a number of different cities around GB about what a 22 games could look like. I am having some really positive conversations with one city in particular. So really hoping that there's a big moment, hopefully following the Commonwealth Games in 2022, because we're also looking at the ability to bid to host a World Games here, which we've never done. We're looking at a 27 or a 2031 to host a Games, which would be transformative for Great Britain. So I knew Special Olympics existed because my parents live in Ireland, and Ireland held the first World Games outside America in 2003. And it was opened by Nelson Mandela and U2 and, and what it did, it fundamentally transformed lives across the whole of Ireland for people and their families with an intellectual disability. So the amount of government support they get, they've got these magnificent offices, which they pay peppercorn rent for. They're just part and parcel of life. So they're like 16 years ahead of where we are because the investment, the legacy really transformed their movement over there. And I talked with my colleague Matt over there and his team, who are brilliant. So we believe that hosting a World Games here is, one, it's the right thing to do, but two, it would just have a massive impact on all levels. And, I've been talking for 2 years going, why wouldn't we? We've hosted an Olympics, a Paralympics, Commonwealth, we do World Champions. The infrastructure is here. The know-how is here. Why should our athletes be treated any different from their Olympic and Paralympic counterparts just because they happen to have an intellectual disability? So, keep an eye on that. I'm still pushing and having lots of conversations, and I'm pretty sure it will happen. No, actually, it will happen. It will happen. So when it will happen will be up for debate, but it will happen.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more there. And so if we're looking ahead, The next World Game you said will be in Berlin 2023.
Yeah.
You might have national games before that.
Yeah.
Anything else to look forward to with regards to the Special Olympics in the coming years?
Yeah, we've got the World Winter Games are in Kazan in Russia in January 22. So they were originally supposed to be held in Sweden, beginning of next year, but they couldn't be held in Sweden. So Kazan in Russia are hosting the World Games. So all being well with the world, because we've just finished our interviews for our coaching team for the because we'll compete in alpine skiing and figure skating. And we'll send a small team out. Our winter sports are still in development. There's a cohort of winter athletes, but we need to do more. But our summer sports are more popular. But the winter stuff is unreal. We had our national games in Crans, Montana in February this year, and we took 100 skiers out to Switzerland and to compete in the national games. And honestly, it was the best time. I absolutely loved it. And just to see, some of the athletes, when we're doing medal ceremonies, were, some struggle walking or keeping balance. And then they're flying down the slopes and doing slalom. Like, what? So sport is a great leveler. Like the field of play, the slopes, it's just an amazing leveler. And everybody needs to experience a Special Olympics event. It'll change your life.
Yeah. You have said that you have the best job in sports, and I can see that now when you're talking about it, that you have a real big passion. So why is this the best job in sports?
Yeah, because I get to work with our athletes, and for me, an intellectual disability is, in its simplest form, it's an IQ of 75 or less, and an intellectual disability is developed at birth or before you're 5 years of age. So it's developed before you have a chance to create these filters that we all have, in life. So our athletes are pure. They just have no filter. They just say it how it is. They and their families have really had to fight for everything that they've had, they get in their lives, and, have overcome so many things. Harrison, one of our he's a judo player, and I was on Sky Sunrise News with him and another athlete, Amy, who was a gymnast. And when he was born, his parents were told he would never walk, talk, or sit up. Now, Harry is he's a 6 foot, and he won a silver medal in judo at the World Games.
Wow!
And and that's just one of many stories. So, we have an athlete leadership team, and when I met them first, January last year, I just said, what is it you want? It's led by athletes, it's run by athletes, and it's supposed to be the athlete voice. And then they said, we want a voice and we want to be heard. So I said, okay, done deal. So that team, we've really worked with them, and they are part of our formal leadership team. And then throughout COVID, I have a daily team huddle with my team. So we have a check-in every morning. We do a mental health check-in and just see where we all are. And our athlete leadership team join our full team every Thursday. And it's the highlight of the week. And I'm in a privileged position to be able to work alongside our athletes. And, my job is not to sell Special Olympics, but to create platforms and environments where our athletes can tell their own stories. And, my job is to create support networks and environments which will allow that to happen. And, they just bring me so much joy. They teach me so much. I just love it. And the potential of Special Olympics Great Britain, going from being the best kept secret in Great Britain to reaching more people and, more. My ultimate is, when a child is born with an intellectual disability or a visible intellectual, so with Down syndrome, the family members that I speak to have all said the same. They were handed their child with an apology. I'm so sorry, your son has. I'm so sorry, your daughter. And that's a sympathy. When a child is born without a limb, the work that and the phenomenal success of the Paralympics is that a parent has more than likely have seen, well, actually, if my child is missing a leg, then I've seen that you can get a blade and you can run and you can do anything. And I want the same for our athletes and the next generation who are born, that, there shouldn't be a need to apologise because you have a child with an intellectual disability. It should be a celebration. Congratulations, you have a baby girl. And I want people to be able to see that having Down syndrome or having an intellectual disability doesn't stop you doing anything. Our athletes competing on a global stage, we took 128 athletes to Abu Dhabi last year for the World Games. They competed alongside 7,500 athletes across the world from over 190 different countries. We're the only country, we finished 6th on the global table. We won 169 medals, 63 of which were gold. We beat China.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. We were leading the medal table at 2 days before the close of the competition. And we were the only country in the top 50 that doesn't get central government funding. That was all self-funded by, local regions and local clubs. I'm like, people need to know about that and celebrate, our athletes walking out. And I was privileged to walk out with them at the opening ceremony, 55,000 people, full stadium, all in GB tracksuits, just the whole world watching it. It was live all over the world. And I was like, oh, this is just the most amazing thing. And I said to all our athletes, I was bursting with pride. And I can't even imagine how your parents and your family members and friends who've had to fight for everything for you and were told or believed, you wouldn't amount to anything. And here you are, and they're watching you walking out on a world stage, representing your country in a sport. It's just phenomenal, and more people need to be. So that's why I have the best job in the world. And everything I've done throughout my career, and I've worked in a lot of different sectors, and I've had a lot of different roles. And for some, it's like, oh, that's a strange route. But for me, it built my, a number of different areas, and my brand awareness, my commercial awareness, understanding marketing and branding, understanding fundraising, understanding the sport environment, and, just brings it all together. So I'm able to be in a position, and it's a real privilege, genuinely. I mean, it's tough, it's really tough, but it's a real privilege to be able to be in a position to create transformative change.
Yeah.
Sorry, I went on them. When I get on my high horse, Marcus, I'll just keep going.
No worries at all. No worries at all. It's very interesting. And it leads me into my next question, which you said that everything you have done in your career has led you here, because you have worked for charities and voluntary work, international NGOs, and you have a master's degree in leadership and organizational change. Mm-hmm. So if you look at that now in hindsight, it's very, very, very relevant to what you do now, I would say.
Yeah, 100%. My passion has always been sport. I grew up next to Old Trafford in Manchester as a massive Man United fan. See behind me, Man United draw. I played football for Man United ladies in the early days. Just hugely passionate about sport. But then I was really interested in business, and when I went to college, I did business and finance, and it was when a tutor said, why don't you, and in my family, nobody had ever gone to university. Actually, nobody had ever gone to college. So I was kind of an anomaly in my family, and a tutor at college had said, why don't you just bring both together and go to university and do this? I was like, what? Me? University? What? No. And then I did my leisure studies degree, and, just continued to build on my passion for sport, but then my interest in business and finance and stats and all that kind of nerdy stuff. So I worked in the disability field for a long time, learning disability service. I worked in America, people with challenging behaviours and brain injuries. And then I came back and worked in sports development. And then I kind of had a segue, which sounds a bit odd, but I'd always worked in hospitality. And, I landed in Australia and worked in Australia for 2.5 years, managing a chain of Irish pubs. But actually what that did was develop my commercial sense and just understanding how to transform, a business. I transformed a number of their properties. out there, and that I was 23 at the time. 23. I was very young, and then I came back and worked across 3 different county sports partnerships. So working with education, health, governing bodies of sport, economic regeneration, and then needed to take a break because I was like, we're just kind of doing the same. I just knew there was a bit more, and that's where I got the interest in international development, and then I fell into professional sport. And so, but whilst I was working as exec director in Durham, I knew that a master's degree, whilst I wouldn't necessarily think I was that candidate, because academically, I'm like, yeah, the qualifications, and interestingly, I did a talk at a university yesterday. So qualifications themselves don't impress me. It's what you do with it and how you apply it. So, I was working with a coach at the time, and he said, I think you probably just need to, because so many people have got degrees these days, just doing a master's is going to help you just kind of put yourself in a different level. And I love leadership management. I love theories of change. I'm fascinated with people. I just love everything about it, how you can, transform, an organizational culture. And it's just a real passion of mine. And then to be able to do a master's in it, I was like, oh, this is great. So, I did that part-time while I was working as an exec director. And, it's fantastic. I continue to learn from it. But that without application, I wouldn't have been able to do that at 21, because not having an understanding how life and business and the sector works, I think it's hard to do a master, it would be for me, like that at 21 without life experience. So I think the fact that I had 10 years at that stage, and then I was able to apply it, and then I was able to actually just go back and test it with my team and build a high-performing team. So, yeah, it was great. Great. Loved it.
Your role is very interesting, especially from a leadership perspective, I would say, because you have on the one hand, your leadership towards the athlete, but also to the organization and to the staff. Mm-hmm. So how is that role from the leadership perspective?
So I'm a big fan of distributed leadership. So I actually had a full team meeting yesterday afternoon with my team. And as I said to them, leadership is not a position, like it's not a title. It's how you work. So we all have and need to develop our level of leadership skills, and that's very different from management skills. So leadership for me is about empowerment, and it's about getting the best out of yourself and the best out of everybody else, and raising others up, taking responsibility and accountability. I love developing high performing teams and developing a real strong team culture. And as with any change, you go through painful times. So, to be an effective leader, you have to make some really tough decisions along the way. And when you're creating a culture, so certainly for me, I develop a team based on shared values. So talent, you can teach. Skills, you can teach. Passion and the way that we operate as humans is innate, And for me as a leader and as the CEO, my job is to help. I sit underneath the organization. I have a reverse hierarchy, if you like. So I say that in our infrastructure in Great Britain, our board sits at the bottom. So our board's role is to support me, and my role is to support the team, then to support the volunteers, to make a difference and work with our athletes. So our role is a supportive. It's not, this is what's happening and this is what you will do. It's not command control, and it's all about collaboration. It sounds really twee, but we're a people business. I learned very young, people do business with people. Emotional intelligence is a hugely important attribute that I take emotional intelligence every day over academic intelligence, EQ over IQ every day. And I just love developing people. I continue to mentor. I'm privileged to mentor lots of people that I've worked with in several organizations over the last 20 years. And, seen some go from one girl, Natasha, who, I love her. So she was my very first apprentice that I appointed when I set up the Lancashire County Cricket Club Foundation. And she's now gone on 7 years later to create her own foundation.
Wow.
So I checked in with her, and honestly, it just makes me so proud. She's going, no, it's you. You gave me the opportunity. And I'm like, well, no, I gave you the opportunity, but you took it and you ran with it. So you made it happen. I just see as if we're in leadership positions, we all have a duty to open the door for someone. So we should just always pay it forward and just give people a chance at some point, because that will make a massive difference.
Yeah, definitely. Approaching the end here, I think we have talked a lot about Special Olympics and about your career and leadership. Is this something that I haven't asked you that you would like to mention?
Oh, you've not said, Michelle, how do I give you a load of money? No. Listen, Special Olympics, we're at a really exciting time in our development and transformation here. There's lots of really exciting things happening, lots of conversations happening. So this is the time for people to kind of get on board. And if you don't know about us, follow our social media platforms. I mean, we have a tiny team doing a big job, so I just need to work on that. But, just what I would say is when we're out of this, check out our website, specialolympicsgb.org.uk, and come along and open your mind, just see a competition, make it your mission to have a conversation with someone with an intellectual disability in the next 12 months. Promise you it'll be the best conversation you ever had. There's a lot of fear out there. Oh, what can I say? You start with hello, that our athletes are people, are very funny. And so, we just want to share the joy. So watch the journey, get on board if you can. And just see how many more lives we can transform and just open your mind to what inclusion actually means in action.
Yeah, sounds good. If you could choose the next guest on this podcast, who do you think that I should talk to?
I actually think you should talk to a couple of our athletes.
That would be very interesting.
Yeah, it would be brilliant. So a couple of our athletes or some members of our athlete leadership team, it'd be a hoot. So, and who Kira Byland, who I buddy as well, as she sits on our board. She's a double, triple gold medalist. She won 3 golds in cycling in the LA Games in 2015, and she won 3 golds in Abu Dhabi World Games in cycling. She's the only person in Special Olympics history to do that. So she's a phenomenal human being. And Ian Harper, who chairs our athlete leadership team, he works as a director in his own right. He's won several medals at games over the years, and he's also an international Sergeant Shriver Global Messenger, which means he's basically one of 10 athlete leaders across the world who talk in big audiences. And he's also hilarious and loves a good ad lib and a one-liner. And that's who I would say interview.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting.
Yeah,
I will reach out to you about that in the future.
Excellent. Good.
Michelle, thank you so much for taking your time.
No problem.
Appreciate it very much, and looking forward to the upcoming events for Special Olympics GB in the future.
Oh, super. Thanks, Marcus. Really do appreciate the opportunity to talk about Special Olympics.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Sports Management Podcast. Do you have thoughts or ideas about this podcast, or do you know someone that I should interview next? Please reach out to me on sportsmpodcast@gmail.com or visit my website sportsmanagementpodcast.com. If you prefer social media, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at sportsmpodcast.